Good day to everyone. I am Syed and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. On behalf of Beroe, I would like to welcome you all to today's webinar on natural gas trucks, an opportunity to save on logistics costs in Europe from Beroe Insights. Talking a bit about today's webinar, logistics is one of the core needs for any organization. Logistics as a portfolio has several categories underneath, out of which road freight is predominantly used. In today's webinar, we will see how the transportation segment can make use of alternative fuels, especially natural gas, to control the rising conventional fuel costs. Before we move ahead with the presentation, I have some general set of instructions for the attendees. Please note that all the attendees will be placed on mute. During the course of presentation, if you'd like to post questions, you will find a box on the right-hand side of your screen, indicated in red on this slide. Request you to type your question and hit the send button. As and when the presentation progresses, I will note down the high-frequency questions and I will pose it to the presenter at the end of the session. If you are experiencing any connection issues, request you to close the window, go back to the email, and try to connect using the same link. If there are further problems, request you to please email Puneet, that is puneet.ramal@beroe-inc.com, which you can also find in the email. Moving on, let me quickly introduce the speaker for today. Shijit Ajit Kumar. Shijit is a logistics expert at Beroe. In his 2 years at Beroe, he has gained extensive knowledge and experience in developing procurement insights based on logistics best practices across the globe, especially on road freight. He has authored several thought leadership papers, to name a couple of them: palletless shipping and its cost benefits, and fleet renewal program in Brazil, its impact on buyers. Let me now pass it on to the presenter.
Thanks for the introduction, Syed. Hello all, and welcome to today's webinar. Logistics is one of the major spend category for shippers in any industry, and trucking constitutes approximately 80% of the total volume transported. Shippers across industries such as CPG, pharmaceutical, and chemicals are the key users of trucking service in Europe, and fuel, predominantly diesel, is one of the major variable costs for operating these trucks. Category managers in charge of procuring logistics services will always have to keep fuel costs into consideration, a factor which is not fully in their control. Recent technological advancements in the area of combustion engines have paved way for the use of natural gas as an alternative for diesel. Trucks fueled by natural gas not only reduce carbon emissions but cut down running expenses, a handy option for logistics managers. And that's our topic for today: natural gas trucks, an opportunity to save on logistics costs in Europe. With that, as a brief introduction, let us now look at the agenda for today's webinar. I'll start by addressing the current trucking market scenario in Europe, following which I will move on to operating cost comparison between a diesel and a CNG truck. I will then talk about the adoption level of natural gas trucks in Europe. To conclude today's presentation, I will discuss various initiatives taken by organizations to include natural gas fleet. Now, let us see what's happening in Europe vis-a-vis current trucking market. Let's look into the model split for transportation in pan-European region. The road transportation takes about 75 to 80% of the market share, with commodities such as food and beverages, agricultural products, chemicals, and certain other finished goods the rail and inland waterways takes about 13% and 7% of the market share respectively. Let's see the typical challenges faced by road freight. First, limited availability of skilled labor, and in our case, it's truck drivers. Second, fluctuation in diesel prices. Third, the government regulations curbing the emission rate. All these factors in turn affect the total cost for operating a diesel truck. And for our webinar, we would be focusing on latter two challenges, which are fluctuating diesel prices and emission control. However, all this brings us to the question, do we have an alternative here? And the answer is yes, we do have, which is truck fuel with natural gas. Let's see how. In terms of availability, there are more than 2,000 natural gas enabled heavy-duty trucks operating in major trading countries like Italy, Spain, and Sweden. And we also see an increasing investment trend by other member countries such as Germany and Austria. What about manufacturing? With the increasing trend of exploring alternative fuels, manufacturers are willing to venture into the technology and are taking great initiatives to promote natural gas trucks in the market. Prominent manufacturers are Iveco, Volvo, Daimler, and Scania. The models these companies have launched can in fact compete with diesel trucks with lesser carbon emission and lower fuel cost. In terms of adoption, natural gas fleet is predominantly used on a domestic level. I can quote a well-known example of Madrid where the company in charge of city's garbage collection is using more than 400 trucks for the waste removal from the city. The Iveco trucks used for this particular initiative enabled them to save emission of 1.5 ton of nitrogen oxide and about 2 tons of carbon dioxide annually. This when compared to Euro 3 diesel trucks. Furthermore, the utilization of gas-powered vehicle produces significant savings in fuel cost, in addition to cleaner air and reduced noise level. Now that we have discussed the three important facets of natural gas trucks adoption, let's see if they are better or worse than the diesel trucks. Yes, a comparison. I've taken diesel equipment versus CNG to do a cost comparison. We need to consider all the cost factors involved for operating a truck. Before that, let me put out my assumptions. We are considering a 20 metric ton of Euro 6 class truck predominantly used by FNB, FMCG and chemicals for transporting their goods across Europe. Major evaluation parameters considered would be driver cost, purchase cost, fuel, maintenance, toll, insurance, and tire. Now, let us sort the differential and the common cost factors between the diesel and CNG. The common cost would be driver, tire, and insurance. These factors would mostly remain the same irrespective of the equipment type. Then comes the differential factors such as purchase cost, fuel, maintenance, and toll. These factors can change between the two types of trucks. Let's go deeper and analyze each differentiating parameter in detail. We'll also do a break-even analysis to see the benefits of owning a CNG truck when compared to a diesel truck. First, let's start with purchase cost. A diesel truck on an average costs about 80,000 euros. This I have arrived after comparing the prices of manufacturers like Volvo, Scania, Daimler, etc. Whereas a CNG-based truck would cost about 100,000 euros. The higher cost is accounted due to the engine design of CNG truck and the tank size consuming more space to accommodate high pressure methane as fuel. By this slide, we can clearly see that CNG trucks are expensive. However, as we go ahead, we would explore how this increased cost can not only be neutralized but also bring additional monetary benefits. Now, let's see the fuel cost component. Yes, this is the most important parameter and major cost differentiator in the entire comparative analysis. Let's start with the individual fuel prices. The average diesel rate in the European Union is 1.37 euro per litre as compared to 0.8 euro for CNG diesel equivalent. Before we proceed, let me explain that for you. The diesel volume are measured in liters, whereas CNG in cubic meters. A CNG diesel equivalent means the amount of energy produced, which will be equivalent to burning same amount of diesel. So, when we do a differential fuel cost analysis, we can conclude that the CNG cost is at least 60% lower than diesel. Let us take an example of Italy, where diesel price stands at 1.67 euro per litre, whereas the CNG diesel equivalent is only 0.7 euro, which is about 120% lesser. Now, let's move on to maintenance cost. For a CNG truck, maintenance cost is comparatively higher due to difference in lubricating oil used, specialized spark plug replaced every 50,000 kilometers, and equipment cleaning charges, increasing the maintenance cost for a CNG truck when compared to a diesel truck. So the last parameter for the cost analysis is toll charges. Every country has its own calculation for the toll. Usually, tolls are calculated based on the truck's emission class type, axle numbers, weight carried, and the distance covered in the toll route. Let us consider a scenario in Germany. For a 4-axle Euro 3 class truck, the toll charge is found to be 0.204 euro per kilometer, and it is 0.155 euro per kilometer for a Euro 6 class truck on account of lower emission standards. Continuing the same logic of toll calculation, CNG truck has further lesser emissions as compared to Euro 6 standards. Therefore, doing the math, we can conclude that the toll charges would be approximately 10% lower. Now that we know the result of differential analysis, it's time to answer, when can one reap the benefits? To answer this, we will do a break-even analysis. Let's go back to the parameters and the comparisons we did for diesel versus CNG. First, fuel cost comparison, where CNG is cheaper. Next, the toll. Here too we see CNG being cheaper. However, for maintenance and purchase cost, we find CNG being more expensive. Considering all the differentiating parameters and assuming the typical European truck running for 100,000 kilometers a year, we can deduce that CNG trucks will be break-even in approximately 3 years. That is, it will take approximately 3 years to gain benefits by the usage of CNG trucks for the initial cost invested in the truck. And if CNG truck is running for 50,000 kilometers per year, it should break even in approximately 4 years. And for 150,000 kilometers a year, it should break even in 2 years. Let's take a pause and recollect what we have gone through till now. By now, we have an understanding of availability of CNG trucks, cost differential vis-a-vis diesel trucks, and the time required to break even. It's time to understand if the European Union infrastructure supports the natural gas operations. Let's have a look at that. Today, in 2014, currently countries like Germany, Austria and Italy are leading the pack with adequate infrastructure to cater the requirement of refueling natural gas trucks. The next set of countries are moderately developed. However, I would like to point out that these countries are accelerating in terms of initiatives to promote alternative fuel infrastructure. The set of countries that fall under this category are France, Czech Republic, Netherlands, and UK. The last set of countries at the moment are lagging behind, predominantly the Eastern European ones, which still has a lot to catching up to do. However, if we look into Western European countries, they are expected to develop faster. In long term, say 2020, the group of countries across three categories would look like this, where France, Netherlands, and Czech Republic would be part of the developed infrastructure group, whereas Spain, Poland, and Switzerland will join the band of moderately developed countries in terms of natural gas infrastructure. Well, that's good for an overview. I would like to take you deeper in terms of current infrastructure across developed countries. Let's see two major economies and their natural gas infrastructure. In Italy, Lombardy and Emilia-Romagna regions are well developed for supporting refueling of natural gas trucks, and rest, as you can see, is moderately developed. Let's look at a few numbers. There are about 912 public refueling stations and 47 private stations in the country. The government has also initiated various schemes and subsidies for the widespread usage of natural gas as an alternative fuel for transport. In December 2013, the Italian government has introduced a law which provides incentives for the production and use of biomethane, especially for transportation and electricity production. So in Italy, domestic trucking service using natural gas trucks is feasible. Let's look into another country. In Germany, if we see, the area in and around Bremen, Hamburg, and Berlin are well developed to support refueling of natural gas trucks, and rest, as you can see, is moderately developed. The percentage of natural gas stations available is about 31% and is expected to increase in coming years. There are also few government initiatives to boost the usage of CNG trucks like tax benefits. The government has decided to extend the currently incorporated reduced tax rates beyond 2018 for natural gas trucks used for transportation. So, what do we understand or take away from this slide? In current German scenario, predominantly short hauls are feasible. Little extensive planning can achieve long haul as well. No study is complete without looking into the adoption of new practice or the case of success. Ease of adoption is a major decisive factor for the successful completion of any analysis. So, let's analyze adoption. We have few case examples of companies who have already adopted natural gas trucks in their fleet to reduce cost and carbon footprint. First case example is Coca-Cola, who has taken the initiative to use CNG trucks in their fleet. Coca-Cola, operating in UK, currently runs 14 CNG trucks on their delivery routes from its Ainfleet depot in North London to various locations. The route distance ranges from 80 to 300 km per day with 20 to 25 drop points. Coca-Cola has invested in its own gas station at its site, and the gas is supplied by Gasrec. it is estimated that they were able to reduce nitrogen oxide emission by about 85%, particulate matters by 97%, and if we look into the operation side, they were able to reduce the fuel cost by about 13%. Other example is UK-based logistics service provider Howard Tenants, who owns approximately 23 fleets which can be operated on both type of fuels, that is CNG and diesel. The dual fuel vehicles operating on CNG has reduced CO2 by emission by approximately 15%, representing 8% decline in total fleet emissions. The company has also invested in its own refueling infrastructure at Avila, Boston, and Andover, and is expected to expand its alternative fuel fleet operation for 2014-15. Another case example is Frito-Lay in USA, who has brought 150 natural gas trucks for its operation in Midwest US. The shortage of fuel stations near the distribution centers of the company made operations challenging for the natural gas trucks, and they did not want to invest more capital for the same. They accomplished the task by tying up with potential fuel station partners that they would buy fuel for next 5 to 7 years at the new fueling stations. The deal enabled the companies smooth operation of their natural gas trucks and also enabled them to lock the fuel rate at a lower rate for the same time period. Now that we know how the adoption is, we should also understand if someone wants to engage with service provider offering natural gas fleet, how he should go about, which brings us to the point of current engagement model in Europe. Foremost, the shipper should know that trucks are mostly owned by logistics service providers. Moving on to the engagement model, approximately 95% of the shippers engage with logistics service providers for their trucking requirements. Large shippers negotiate contract period and payment terms with service providers in advance, and trucks are mostly owned by the logistics service providers. These service providers may own their own trucks or outsource to small trucking companies. Now we are clear that it is feasible to shift to natural gas trucks in few countries in Europe, and in long term can be extended to other countries as well. I would now like to take you to the last section of this webinar. To conclude, currently, natural gas trucks can be operated in Germany and Italy for domestic transportation and also for cross-country transportation purpose between Germany, Austria, and Italy. By 2020, the region is planning to consolidate a basic pan-European CNG and LNG stations network. This would enable shippers to use natural gas trucks for cross-country movement across Europe as compared to its current restricted use for domestic transport. Our study estimates that the CNG refueling stations will constitute about 70% of total refueling stations and approximately 25% of total fleet of vehicles will be natural gas operated in next 8 to 10 years. Thank you all, and now I'm open to your questions.
Thanks, Srijit. That was really an insightful presentation. It was impressive to hear that natural gas is viable to fuel the freight movement. I will now take up the high-frequency questions received during today's webinar. And I can see that among the long list of questions, one of the prominent questions which have been repeating among many of audiences is with regard to the sustainability of this technology. Srijit, our listeners are keen to know what is the long-run sustainability of this technology of natural gas trucks.
Well, I would say that natural gas is the fuel for future. It's very evident from the infrastructure development initiatives taken by various government bodies in European Union to support this particular technology and to make it a future. Currently, natural gas trucks is the best alternative technology available to diesel trucks with lesser emission and lower fuel cost. As explained earlier, my suggestion for the logistic service providers and shippers would be to invest in natural gas trucks now, and you can reap the benefits for the initial additional cost in approximately 3 to 4 years.
Thanks, Sujit, for answering that. I have one more question here, which is with regard to the crude oil prices. Crude oil prices are dropping down drastically. So what is the guarantee that the cost difference of 60% or so will sustain in coming years to reap benefits by the usage of natural gas in the long run?
Yes, we were expecting that question. Yeah, we agree that crude oil price is going down gradually. In recent months, we have seen that it has gone down drastically. The major reason attributed to this decrease in oil price are, first, we should see the increase in production in non-OPEC countries, primarily the US. And second, the reluctance of OPEC countries to cut down production. Slowing economic activities in regions such as Europe, Japan, and China has also contributed to this decline. We see that the US crude oil production has been consistently rising and reached above 9 million barrels per day by the end of November 14, exerting significant pressure on crude oil prices. US crude oil exports have also increased significantly in recent months, reflecting severe supply pressures. As per the crude oil forecast, it is estimated that the price will dip up to 35% by mid-2015 and will stabilize after that for sure. If you see the flip side of the coin, there is recent development of shale gas exploration in Poland. The Polish government is planning to build 50 new shale wells every 12 months of next few years, which will be beneficial for the entire European Union. And there are exploration going on in US and also in China, which will definitely bring down the prices for natural gas in coming years. So the price difference will stand approximately same as per the current trend and also in the near future.
Thanks, Sujit, for answering that. And those were the two high frequency questions. So let's wrap up today's webinar. And if you have further more questions later on, please feel free to mail it to puneet.ramal@beroe-inc.com. Thank you everyone for joining us. Have a nice day.